Hey, how's it going, guys? My name's Lieutenant Leroy. Welcome to the Beginner's Guide. Now, unfortunately, the first half of the first episode footage was lost because I had to split it into two recordings because the game crashed halfway through. My computer started messing up, and the footage for the first half got corrupted. So, what you're gonna see here is like 20 minutes of me playing, already having played that part, the first half of this part, like 5 freaking times in a row. Because I keep having to re-record it, doing it in different ways, and now I'm finally using a capture card. I had to rig up my capture card to capture gameplay on my second monitor. So, that's also why you don't have the overlay that you normally have. But halfway through this episode, it will be back to the point at which I had never played this game before, and from then on, I have never played this game before. So, let's go ahead and begin. Also, if you haven't played this game before, play it. It is not really a video game as much as it is an experience. There's no goals or anything. It's just a guy telling a story about his friend. But, you'll see.
Hi there. Thank you very much for playing The Beginner's Guide. My name is Davey Reed.
You're welcome.
I wrote The Stanley Parable, and while that game tells a pretty absurd story, today I'm going to tell you about a series of events that happened between 2008 and 2011. We're going to look at the games made by a friend of mine named Coda. Now, these games mean a lot to me. I met Coda in early 2009 at a time when I was really struggling with some personal stuff, and his work pointed me in a very powerful direction. I found it to be a good reference point for the kinds of creative works that I wanted to make. So just to start you off, this is, I think, the first game he ever made. It's a level for Counter-Strike. You can walk around here, by the way. And mostly it's just Coda learning the basics of building a 3D environment. But what I like is that even though he starts from the simple aesthetic of a desert town, he then scatters these colorful abstract blobs and impossible floating crates around the level. And of course, it destroys the illusion that this actually is a desert town,
straight up black.
and instead this level becomes a kind of calling card from its creator. It's like a reminder that this video game was constructed by a real person. And it kind of makes you wonder, what was going through his head as he was building this? This is what I like about all of Coda's games. I mean, not that they're all fascinating as games, but that they are all going to give us access to their creator. I want us to see past the games themselves. I want to get to know who this human being really is. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. So, it's 2008, Coda starts making these games, and he never releases any of them. He doesn't put them onto the internet, he just makes them and then immediately abandons them, and they sit on his computer forever. And I think he really understood this image of himself as a recluse. At one point, he jokingly renamed his computer's recycling bin to Important Games Folder. So, you know, this was just how he worked. He tended to crank them out one after the other without even really pausing to try to understand what he had just made, until suddenly one day, he just stopped. In 2011, that was it. He made his last game, and then he hasn't made another one since. And that's why I've taken this opportunity to gather all of his work together, is because I find his games powerful and interesting, and I'd like this collection to reach him, to maybe encourage him to start creating again. And if the people like you who play this also happen to find his work interesting, then I'm sure it'll just send that much stronger of a message of encouragement to Coda. So thanks for joining me on this. If you have a particular interpretation that I haven't mentioned here, or if you just need to get in touch, you can email me at daveyWreden@gmail.com. Okay, that's about it for introduction. Let's take a look at Coda's first proper game. As each game is loading, I'll show you the date that it was completed. This first one was made in November 2008.
Now, if you see me look up above the camera, that is me checking the shot for my face cam. Sorry to be so unprofessional, but you know.
Whisper machine active. Shift to structure imminent.
This game is called Escape from Whisper, and it's one of the more generic games you'll see from Coda.
You'll see Whisper reappear later on. And and there's a reason behind it. This is his last actual, like,
You can click to fire the gun.
typical game they ever tried to make.
Security hull breached. Hostile alien life form inbound.
It kinda looks like this game was abandoned mid-development. For instance, you have this gun, which you'd think would indicate that there are supposed to be monsters or
Where am I?
enemies somewhere, but then clearly there are no enemies anywhere. You can't even reload the gun when you run out of bullets. But ultimately we don't really know. Maybe Coda thought that actually it was complete the way that it is. And I think that we should talk about his games for what they are, rather than for what they're not.
Enemy force neutralized. Begin shield
I
evacuation.
love how you can see the bottom of the universe from this room.
Now, the thing about this guy, who we'll see later on, he doesn't really do things unless it's on purpose. Something like this, seeing the bottom of the universe, he had to have done that on purpose for some reason. Also, this, on the outside here, it's sort of like an exact copy, almost, of what's on the inside. Well, not exactly, but, you know. Sort of like if you build a Minecraft house, but leave out the corners on the outside. So on the inside it looks like a perfect cube. On the outside you can obviously see that it's not. Which I think is interesting. He didn't like put an outer shell to the ship where you can actually see the outside of the ship. So why did he leave that out there?
Apparently this space station has a labyrinth on it. Sure, I don't know. There's really no reason for it that I've ever been able to discern, so in the interest of time, I'm just gonna skip you on past it.
But I want to figure it out.
Okay, this is the part that's interesting. The game has this narrative about the whisper machine and how it has to be turned off, and then you get to the engine room.
Hey, you there, in the engine room. You could save us all. That beam is powering the whisper machine. We could disrupt it by introducing a great enough heat signature. If your body could stop
Sorry for the hat hair.
It's so much to ask, but for all of our lives, would you do it? Could you give yourself?
Nah. Okay.
Let me pause here for a second. What you just experienced, stepping into the beam and then dying, is probably what Coda had initially intended when he was developing this level. But when he first compiles and plays it, something goes wrong. There's a bug somewhere. And this is what happens instead.
Perfectly. Oh. Maybe not.
The beam causes you to start floating. And this is an important moment for him. Because yes, this is technically a glitch, but Coda identifies something human about it. Like how small it makes you feel in the face of this larger chaotic system. Or this floating could be the afterlife, a peaceful place, juxtaposed against all of the hysteria that you've just had to traverse. I don't even know. I have no idea what he was thinking, but what's clear is that after making this, something lodges itself in his brain. He wants to do more of these really weird and experimental designs. So he stops work on this and moves on to a stream of tiny little games that go in all sorts of directions. Let's go ahead and take a look at the first game he made after leaving this one behind.
Okay. Now this one. Can't walk forward. Can't walk to either side. But can walk backwards.
Yep. In this game, you can only walk backwards.
The past was behind her. Okay. Also, another thing that I like. If you notice, you would think, oh, this is there because if I walk too close to the edges, I'll fall off. But you can't. Because that's what I thought my first playthrough of this. But it's just there to add a sense of danger, I guess. At least I would think. Maybe it's something more. I want to see even these outside edges. Oh,
So it's a
That's
short
Joy's block.
and relatively minimalist experiment combining motion and narrative. It is less advanced than the previous game, but actually it seems to be more focused, more complete. Code is trying to give it a unique voice rather than simply basing it on a pre-existing trope.
okay, so the past was behind her, but the future could not be seen. Why does the future keep changing? That way is open now. Okay, so let's go through there. When she stops and looks, it becomes clear. Anything else? Nope. Okay. That is interesting level design right there. I like that. How it sort of jigsaw puzzles away. Oh, but if the future is always behind her. Anything else? How will she find the strength? Oh, it's right there. To confront it.
It's a short little thought, it says what it wants to say, and then it ends. Didn't need anything more than that. Which to me is why it works, because it gets out quick. Okay, next one.
Okay. Let's go. You're now entering.
And that's it. Okay, the meaning of this game won't be clear just yet. Please be patient with me for a few more games, and I promise you'll see what makes it interesting. Oftentimes, Coda would put bizarre titles like this one at the start of his games.
Okay, so it started me off looking
I
at
wish
it.
I'd known him at the time that he was making these early games.
So that's
He would
my
really only
objective.
talk to me about his work as he was making it. Once he stopped work on a game, like, that was it. It was dead to him. And I don't agree with that at all, but what are you gonna do?
Let's have a look around real quick. I never looked in my other playthroughs.
I know it's tempting, but there's actually nothing over here. Sorry.
Okay. So that's it, just the objective. I like how he starts me out looking up there like that. It's like, boom, go there. It's pretty funny. Okay, we're walking. And we're slowing down. And almost a complete stop.
Once you've been slowed to an absolute crawl, the door at the top of the stairs opens. So why, if Coda's not showing these games to anyone, why bother opening the door at all? Well, to show you, I'm modifying the game here so that when you press enter, it'll bring you back up to full speed so you can enter the door for yourself.
Okay. Enter. These are all game ideas.
A room that's warm and nice and filled with little ideas for games.
I like that idea. Play as a
Coda
camera.
would often tell me that he didn't mind if people thought of him as cold or distant.
One on the top
He
there.
said that he knew that he was actually a vibrant and compassionate person, but that it takes time to really see that. It can be a very slow climb to get there.
If you want to read these, pause it as I go. I know I'm probably going to while I edit this. Because a lot of those are actually really interesting. Okay. And now we'll go back to when I had no idea what I was in for at all. Again, If you have not played this game and you've watched to this point, stop watching. Play it yourself. If you don't feel like playing it yourself, then sure, stick around, Experience it through my eyes. But if you have the ability and you have a little bit of money, because I think this game was like $10 on Steam, play it. It's really cool. It's an experience, not a video game. It is meant to be experienced by yourself, really. But, it's meant to be explored at your own ability. So, with that, we'll go back. Alright, we're back. Had a miniature freak out for a second there, because there's like this vibrating coming from my new PC that I just put together and everything. And it was actually just one of the cords was brushing against one of the fans. But that's okay. So we're back. Right where we left off. Ready, set, fish. Hang on. Alright, let's go. Door opens for me. But yeah, I freaked out. I had like a heart attack there for a second. Oh my god. I'm about to be so pissed.
Well, this is new for Coda. It's an actual puzzle. Go ahead and see if you can solve it.
Oh. Huh.
Don't forget that solution, because we're going to see this puzzle again soon. We're gonna see it a lot.
Good at puzzle games. Unless they're atrociously difficult. Out of the box solutions, I got you. Pay no attention to my playthrough dream. Great
So
level
that seems to
design.
be it, right? You walk down a corridor, you solve the puzzle, you get to the end. Simple enough. Alright, now I'm going to modify the game again, so that when you press enter, it'll remove all of the walls from this room.
Enter. What the fuck?
How about that? There was more to it than
Damn.
we had any way of knowing. I actually find it funny that this game comes after the Stairs game, since they essentially convey the opposite idea. So, in the Stairs game, a dull exterior concealed a rich interior. And then, in this level, a dull interior hides this fantastic outer world. Either way, I think that the point is the same, is that most of the time you don't get to know what you're missing, or even that you're missing anything. That's not your role as a player. So if your role here is not to understand, then what is it?
Alright. You are now exiting.
Aha. So, this, combined with the entering game from earlier, tells us that Coda believes his games are connected somehow. It could even be that the Stairs game and the puzzle game are literally connected in between this and the entering game. There's a bigger picture that all of his games are meant to play a role in. some larger meaning that we won't be able to grasp until we've seen all of them. And once we have, we can step back and start to understand what exactly that bigger picture is.
Great and lovely decent. Or is that descent?
Let's talk about video game development for a second. Every video game runs on what's called an engine, which determines what the game can and cannot do. So in other words, the engine is a set of tools for game development.
The streetwise fool.
To make all of these games, Coda is using an engine called Source. Like all engines, Source has certain things that it does well, and it has certain things that it does poorly. One of the things that it does very well is boxy linear corridors. That's why so many of Coda's games are set in these large, flat, empty rooms, is just because he's working with what the engine does well. The tools available to the creator shape what kinds of creative work they're going to end up making. You might consider paying attention to the architecture in Coda's games, to notice how they seem to stem from an engine that's very good at producing linear, boxy corridors.
Hang on a second. Let's just move this up so that we can actually see the dates as they go by. Wow. Wow. That is amazing. Assuming I'm supposed to get all the way to the bottom. I like how it has like these series of stuff like that where it's all similar, and like the spun triangles. That is interesting. Oh. And I fell. That's glass in the middle. Wow. You can see through it, but you can't go through it.
This prison, funny enough, in Coda's original design, the doors stayed shut for a full hour before letting you go. If you don't mind, I think we're gonna skip that. This is something that he and I used to argue about a lot. You know, whether a game ought to actually be playable, whether it means anything if no one can get through it. And I would always defend that, you know, all this work goes into the game, why not make it playable and accessible? And so we just got into heated arguments over it, and there was one time that after one of these conversations, he went home, and a day or two later, he sent me a zip file entitled Playable Games that was full of hundreds of individual games, each of which was just an empty box that you walked around in and nothing else. Believe me, I played every single one of those just to find out if there was like a gag hidden somewhere. There wasn't.
Kota seems like a very interesting guy. What is with the 3 dots? See, I thought they were supposed to be bullet holes. They're too geometrical. They're too common.
It's the puzzle again, with the exact same solution as the last time. There's still no clear indication of what makes this puzzle so special that Kota is going to return to it over and over. But I promise I'll share with you my interpretation very shortly.
Wow.
Here, Kota begins using a kind of dialogue system that he
above?
fashioned out of the engine's chat capabilities. Use the 1, 2, 3 buttons on your keyboard to respond.
Be honest. Again, perfect. Now please tell us how you solved it. Tell us the solution. I can't answer truthfully. Answer 1. You must think harder, please. Try hard to remember. It is so important that we get out of here. We must escape this prison. Can you think harder? There must be something more. Please tell us how to reach the end. It's never ending. It's answer 1. No, we actually find the black space between the doors far more interesting. Have you seen it yet? Two. Actually, now that... Okay. Don't think too hard about it. You'll see it again soon. That is... interesting. Really interesting. See, I like this style of game where it makes you think. This is nice every once in a while. Instead of just...
And so we make
skill-based
one last
games.
descent down to the final floor of the level.
Alright. Yeah, it's nice to play a game that actually exercises your mind without needing skill in the game.
It's a lamppost. Okay, I can't tell you quite why, but for some reason, Kota fixates on this lamppost. It's going to appear at the end of every single one of his games from here on out. I'll tell you what I think. I think that up to this point, you know, he's been making really strange and abstract games with no clear purpose, and maybe you can only float around in that headspace for so long. Because now he wants something to hold on to. He wants a reference point. He wants the work to be leading to something. He wants a destination, which is what this lamppost is. It's a destination. We're going to see it in the work as well. His games are just going to become a lot more cohesive, a lot more fully developed, with more of a clear idea behind them. And as we go, that idea will get clearer and clearer and clearer.
Alright. So I think that we're going to end the episode. Shut the fuck up, phone. I think we're going to end the episode here. This is an awesome game. I like it. I mean, it's not even like really a game. It's more of a telling of a story, but it's still pretty cool. I like this. So yeah. Comment, like, subscribe. Do what you do. See you on the next one. Peace.